Welcome to the 6th Annual Soilcraft Conference. Join us as we listen to world-class speakers in the space of regenerative agriculture, as well as human health. We grow food. Food should nourish us, and often we find that our modern food is laden with unwanted synthetics or void of the minerals and vitamins we need to thrive. We endeavor to host this conference for your inspiration and education. Our calling is to help you produce food that heals people and our planet. Join us in this journey to become better stewards of our bodies and the world we abide in.
Have you ever wondered what tip burn was on your plants? Oh, I got a question already. Yes. Oh, I think I know where you're going with this, and I am going to pull this in. Have you heard of another reason for tip burn? Because that's exactly what I was going to talk about next. I hope you're going in the direction I want you to. Do you know what what are you thinking of? Do you want to get in front of everyone and say that? You probably don't want to. All right, I'm going to possibly speak the words. If not, we're going to go back to you, and I will cover that. He says, is that the only reason for tip burn? I've had many individuals in the past say, this is not tip burn, Tom. You freaking idiot. It has to deal with drought. Drought conditions. This is what causes tip burn. It's not your coronal discharge, electrical point activity. It has to do with drought. It always has to do with drought, okay? So, stupid doctor. The direct effect is the point discharge, the electrical point. The indirect effect can sometimes be caused by a lack of water. When you have a lack of water, this often causes a concentration of charges. As the plant gets dried out, some of the charges become more condensed, and at that point, the electrical point discharge becomes more pronounced. So what is the cause of tip burn? The cause of tip burn is the electrical point effect. The indirect cause, in many cases in your plants, is drought. Okay? So this is is that where you were going with this? The drought? Oh, you were. It's almost like I read your mind. You are not a plant. I did not ask him to ask that question at the particular moment, although that was just awesome that he did. It's like I'm reading his mind, you know? And so because of that, understand the difference between a direct effect and an indirect effect. And I think everyone understands that. So if you know, yes, when things start to dry out, you start to have tip burn on your plants. This is an effect of the electrical point effect, which means you've got high electrical conductivity. And that's a problem, because you also notice is that when you have this, problems start occurring in your plants. Stunted growth, loss in yield, many other things start to occur when tip burn affects your leaves. It's easy to see. This is in Miami. I had occasion to go to Miami. Still pretty far away, by this way. It's about a 6-hour drive from Gainesville. But I was down in Miami, and anytime I go to a saltwater environment, I go check out the plants because I know what I'm going to find. There's high salt due to the water, and I'm going to find tip burn on a lot of the plants. So here's getting close. Get a little bit closer. When you get a close-up of these plants, these are right next to the water. This happens all of the time. So if you ever find yourself at a beach, a saltwater beach, and I'm talking about the beaches like the Great Lakes or anything like that, but if you're at a saltwater beach, if you go check out the plants that are close to the water, most of them, not all of them, but most of them display tip burn. Because the electrical point effect is so strong, there is a massive amount of salt in the soil, and because of that, there is a strong electrical conductivity, and it's so strong it can actually collect at the tips of the leaves and burn it. This is a literal burn that is occurring. This is damage to the leaf, and it goes back as far as it can. If the electrical point effect is stronger, it will go back further along the leaf. Sometimes you'll see it just at the very tip. Sometimes it can extend and get a little bit worse, and suddenly you've got several inches of tip burn based upon the level of electrical conductivity which is in many of your soils. EC characteristics. I've already told you about the stuff in the white. I said, but therefore, tip burn is often a sign of excessive conductivity. What I mean by is excessive. Plants don't want to get burned. That's why it's excessive. Many people think, and you may be thinking this now, well, if you go down to Miami, it's kind of common, right? So common meaning okay. No, it's not okay. Plants don't want to be burned. But many of them do get burned if you have excessive conductivity. The high salinity will kill life. You cannot have life in a high salt environment. If you are asked to drink a considerable amount of seawater, it can actually kill you because you will be taking too much salt into your system if you're not able to handle it. And so this is dangerous to all forms of life, microbes, insects, human beings. If there is no life in the soil, due to this high electrical conductivity or salt, the soil is not moving and breathing the way that it should. What's the result? Compaction. Because when you're walking in a field and it's got plenty of microbes, it can absorb your feet, the pressure that's put on it. If I'm just walking right now, it's only 2 times my body weight, and therefore it will bounce back. If you are putting heavy equipment across it, it will absorb it like a sponge, and then it will come back up. But some of you are doubting me right now. I've had lots of heavy equipment that have gone across. I've got ruts right now. It didn't bounce back. Exactly. It didn't bounce back. You don't have enough microbes. I know you've got a microbial problem. And because you have a microbial problem, often electrical conductivity will go along with that because microbes will help regulate the electrical conductivity. Once they're out of the picture, electrical conductivity can start to run rampant on a field. And at that point, you as a farmer will start suffering in the pocketbook. Okay. Energy is required. All this energy is required. But when we have energy, this flow needs to be there. I'm talking about, once again, excessive. But for example, we've got to have things moving up and down the plant, such as these elevators right now. If we don't have electricity, things don't move up and down, and then you have to use the stairs on a very big hotel, and you realize, wow, this is really tiring, especially when you're putting all that stress on your joints, and so you want to go to the elevator. Well, elevators move people up and down a hotel, and we also have elevators of a sort inside the plant, regulated by the flow of electricity in the plant. One of those minerals, and we all know this too, we don't all know this, but some of you do, and that is boron. Boron is the elevator inside the plants. It's moving sugar and things. So boron is the elevator. The conductivity in the plant needs to be there in order for things to go up and for things to go down, and in some cases, things to go side by side. So this electrical conductivity is absolutely necessary for a healthy, functioning plant. How do we measure it? It's a good question. This is a short handheld. This is maybe 10 inches long, so it's relatively short. It measures electrical conductivity from 0 to 4.00 millisiemens per centimeter. I got to tell you in advance right now, there are some differences. There are 2 ways to measure electrical conductivity. One of them differs by 3 orders of magnitude, meaning you have to move the decimal point 3 points over. So try not to get too confused right now, but I'm just telling you that when you're measuring EC from 0 to 4.00, in some cases, that is actually known as 0 to 4,000. So I don't want you to get too overwhelmed with this, and I'm sorry that I have to tell you this, but these are the facts. As a scientist, I have to tell you that the units do change based upon whatever device you happen to be using. This one is 0 to 4. Some people might say it's 0 to 4,000, depending upon how you wish to portray whether it be millisiemens or microsiemens. And that's really the big unit change between them. This was developed in conjunction with USDA ARS soil scientists. And more importantly, this does not require a soil solution. This is really cool. So if you're familiar with electrical conductivity, you may know that they used to make a solution. They would bring in some water, bring in some soil, kind of mix it up a little bit, and then they would stick it in, and they would get an electrical conductivity measurement. Not so with this. You just stick it into the soil. Now, this is a short one. It's only about 10 inches long, so you can stick it into a potted plant, and you can get a very quick determination of what the electrical conductivity is of that potted plant. You can also take it out into the field. It's still a little harder to work with because you've got to keep bending over a lot more because it's very short, but it gets the job done. Okay? This does compensate for temperature, which is probably not important for all of you, but if you're a scientific geek in a laboratory, sometimes these compensations are done in order for absolute precision. And this thing at the tip, you will notice, has two rubber black rings around it. The bottom one is made of metal, and then you have a rubber ring right above it, and then you've got another piece of metal, and then a rubber ring just above that. Each of those two metals are isolated from one another. Therefore, it is measuring the flow, the electrical conductivity, from one point to the other point. It just so happens that that point happens to be very, very tiny. So every time you're sticking that into the soil, you're measuring the electrical conductivity at exactly the depth that you put it in. If you put it in at 1 inch, you're getting the measurement there. If you're putting it in at 3 to 4 inches, you're getting a measurement there. So know how this device works. Know that it's measuring electrical conductivity at a very particular point, which is a little bit different than some of the heavy-duty ones that you may connect to your John Deere. But this is excellent for certainly potted plants and other conditions, whether it be in a laboratory or otherwise. If you're out in the field, this is the one you want. This one is 24 inches long. You don't have to bend over so much. This one is running not from 0 to 4, but 0 to 20, 0 to 19.9. So this one has a much greater range associated with it. And so because of that, it's going to tell you a little bit more. It should. It's more expensive. It's also a bigger piece of equipment. It's still very lightweight, but you simply shove it into the ground. You can also get the same point effect on this. Put it an inch into the ground, you can find out what's happening at an inch. Put it all the way in, you're going to find out what's happening 24 inches underneath your soil. Will there be differences at different depths? There usually are. And so therefore, there's a lot of information that can be gleaned from this. All right, and it also has an automatic temperature compensation. This is to make the scientist in the room happy. Yes?
So I got the short one.
Yes?
Just dig the potato hill off and push it in, so you're saying it may not measure at greater depths accurately?
Yeah, I mean, the shorter one only goes to, just the tip of it only goes to about 4 to 5 inches. And then you kind of stop. Now, you can shove the blue part in a little bit further, but you want to make sure that you can still read the device. You don't want to put the thing all the way in.
I'll knock the potato hill off so I can get down in the bottom of it.
Oh, I see what you're saying. You knock it off and it'll go deeper. Yeah, you can play that game. Yes.
Measure accurately still?
I mean, I imagine that it would. I don't think you're going to be changing the electrical conductivity if you take off the top, so you should be good. But I understand what you're referring to is that there could be some interactions with the atmosphere, and if you cut it off, would that change it? Based upon my own electromagnetic knowledge, I'm going to give you a thumbs up. I think you're going to be just okay with trying that method. However, this one is just easier to work with, but you can do that game if you want. So I have both. So this is what's going on. You have a plant growing on the top. This is the part we see, and then we have the roots underneath. Remember, I said the soil conductivity means that the soil is highly conductive. So what is it affecting? Well, it's mostly affecting the roots. However, the roots actually have a desire in order to regulate the electrical conductivity just at the roots. So you can actually have relatively high electrical conductivity or even a little bit low, and the roots will actually produce a little bit, doesn't go out that far. Sometimes it's a few millimeters, sometimes it's just a centimeter or so. and they will actually try to regulate the electrical conductivity at the roots. This is kind of important. The reason why is because when you are sticking that thing into the soil, you can get a general reading about what is happening in the soil. That's true. But in order to find out what is happening at the root, you've actually got to stick that thing and look for a root. Does that involve a little bit of stabbing? Yeah, actually it does.
Speaking of electrical conductivity, did you know that beneficial microorganisms play a critical role in regulating the movement of ions in your soil? Microbial activity directly influences the soil's electrical conductivity, helping manage nutrient flow, cation exchange, and even salt stress in the root zone. That's why we developed Proliferate, our premium aerobic microbial blend. It's not just a compost tea. It's a biologically rich inoculant designed to buffer harmful ions like sodium, improve nutrient cycling, and restore microbial balance in your soil. Think of Proliferate as a living network of biological electricians, optimizing conductivity, stabilizing soil chemistry, and supporting healthier crops from the roots up. Regular applications of Proliferate can enhance nutrient efficiency, reduce the impact of salinity, and activate the soil's natural intelligence. We see more resilient crops with less disease. Please contact us so that we can show you how easy it is to integrate this into your cropping systems.
All right. Whoops. Less consistency when soil measures directly sent. Got it. I'll skip that. EC measurements around young citrus trees. Not the big ones, but the young ones. The older ones have a much more consistent EC reading. But around a young tree that's about 2 years old, we can go at it from 4 different directions, and we will be getting measurements very commonly at 30, 40, or 50, which is 0.3, 0.4, even lower than that, 0.03. But very, very low measure. I get rid of the decimals when I speak about this, so excuse me for that. And so we're getting very, very low measurements, and as we're continuing to probe, suddenly it jumps up to 400, 500, 600, just like that. At that point, I know I hit a root, because electrical conductivity from the root has to be at a certain level, otherwise the plant dies. But if the plant is there, it has successfully been able to navigate as far as it can, and there are different capabilities of plants in doing that, and I'll talk about that in a second, in order to handle electrical conductivity. If it can't handle it, it dies. If it's there, then it's doing a pretty good job of stabilizing its electrical conductivity. But we do have different regions. So on one side, off to the left right there, we were around 190 for 3 different sides, and the other side I hit 552. So this gives you an idea is that the conductivity for a young plant hasn't stabilized itself yet. It has not released enough sugar into the ground through the root exudates, and therefore we do not have a good, clean, consistent electrical conductivity in a 2-year-old citrus tree. This often happens with plants that have a limited lifespan. For the trees, it's much more consistent. You can see we got the same thing as we go from one to the next. Here we've got 400, 400, 500. We're down to 111 on this side. I could not get it above 111 to save my life. This is very consistent. These are all 200 to 300. And this one, we've got a 680, and then we've got 200 around that. This gives you an idea, is that one, the electrical conductivity of the soil is one thing to measure, but you can also measure it directly around a plant to find out how well it is doing. And this gives you a better window into what your crop is doing. Because your crop, you want to get as much information as you can, but maybe more importantly, you want to get as much free information as you can. Because you don't want to send too much stuff off, because that gets to be expensive. You've got to send off a soil sample or a tissue sample. But the bricks measurements that I've talked about before, and of course the electrical conductivity, I talk about these because I'm giving you some options in order to take a little bit more control over your farm so that you have some information to work with and you can bounce this off the more expensive tests that you may be sending out. Okay, and I've got that at micro Siemens per centimeter, so I've got that listed right there. I did mention that a large tree will not have a particular point effect. The electrical conductivity will distribute itself more completely around a large tree, so we can go around a large citrus tree, for example, an avocado tree, an apple tree, even a pine tree, and we'll usually get a good consistent reading around it. It may be low, it may be high, but you understand how this process works and some of the differences that occur. Here, I want to demonstrate the importance of salt. In this experiment here, we have a control with absolutely, positively no salt. Okay. Here, I've got 50 millimoles of salt, 100, 150, and 200. What do you see here? The first thing you see is stunted growth. I told you at the beginning of this presentation, this is one of the side effects of high conductivity. Too much salt has been included in these plants. So because of that, you can see that they get shorter and shorter as they move along. Is that the only thing to notice? No, there's always something else to notice. Do you notice the tip burn? The tip burn is pretty much non-existent in this first plant, but we start to get more advanced tip burn as we move to higher and higher levels of salt, because these plants can't take it. I told you plants do not want to be burned. So if they're being burned, that means there's an unhealthy situation there. We also know that there's going to be a phosphate deficiency. You can see the purple stems developing right there. It's another indication that the high salt is creating nutritional problems for this plant. And so by seeing the purple stems, we recognize that as a phosphate deficiency, which in a nutshell means things are not working the way that it should. Okay. Kochia. Kochia is a common name, summer cypress and burning bush. This is usually found almost exclusively where salts accumulate. This is a plant that can handle high electrical conductivity. Why can it handle high electrical conductivity? There are two ways to do it: morphological, and the other one is biochemical. Do they have the biochemistry to handle the salts, or do they have any morphological distinctions in order to take care of the salts? In this particular case, there's something morphological here, and you can all see it, even if you're in the back of the room right now. This has a lot of points. This is able to dissipate electrical charge better than most other plants. There's always a biochemical component too, but morphologically, this plant can handle hot environments. And it dissipates that massive electrical charge, because it's usually found in salt fields, and can do so simply by the points from its leaves. This is why when you have kochia, that is a sign that you have high electrical conductivity in your soil. If it is really bad, you will have a lot of kochia, and you will not be able to handle it. And you're thinking, I need to get more herbicides. I need to kill these things. They're annoying. If you have just a little bit, this means the electrical conductivity is getting there, because you're only going to see this thing under certain conditions. This plant cannot handle dealing with other plants. It prefers to have the other plants say, that's it, I'm out of here. And then kochia moves in. And they will take the spots that the other plants cannot subsist in. So kochia has that ability in order to handle high electrical conductivity. It's not the only one. Foxtail is very good at it too. Foxtail doesn't have all those leaf points that I just discussed, but it has the foxtail. The foxtail is composed of many, many points, and the foxtail is able to dissipate energy in a very efficient way by the massive number of points that are found at the tip of the foxtail. As a matter of fact, this may surprise you, but foxtail is actually a little bit better than kochia. So kochia can handle salts that others cannot. Once kochia has difficulty, foxtail can handle it. It's almost as if they're saying, step aside, kochia, I'll take it from here. Once you get to foxtail, you are reaching near some of the limits of what you are going to be able to handle on your cropland. Foxtails, too. There are many different types of foxtails that are out there. Some of the common names, and this is good to mention right now, foxtail barley, bobtail barley, squirrel-tail barley, intermediate barley. What did I just repeat 4 times? Barley. This particular foxtail is called Hordeum. Hordeum is the genus for this particular foxtail. Hordeum is also the genus for barley. Okay?
Do they consume salt, or will they bring salt down?
They don't consume it per se. They just have the ability in order to handle the high salt environment, which creates a dangerous electrical conductivity. Oh, do they help regenerate the soil? Yes. Yes, they do. That's their job.
How do they throw away the salt?
They don't. You can actually go ahead and compensate for it. So the salt can actually be, you can actually, biochemically now, biochemically you can actually bind salt and actually prevent it from causing damage. That's actually coming up a little bit later. I got some slides coming. No, you don't apologize. You're just thinking ahead. You may be the only one awake in this room right now. I may have lost everyone. They're all thinking like, man, I wish he'd just shut up so we can go to lunch. But other people are really getting into this and thinking ahead of me right now. And yeah, you're like my favorite person in this whole place right now. All right, fake tears. Yes, question. Yes, that is correct. There are actually some plant. Great question. He was asking about the beards, the points. There are some plants, same species, that if you grow it in a high electrical conductivity environment, they'll have spines on it. And if you grow it in a low conductivity environment, the spines will disappear. So sometimes you'll see this in serrated leaves. There are some plants that have a clean leaf edge, and then sometimes, same species, can have a serrated leaf. The serrated leaf is only found in high conductivity soils, same plant. If you go ahead and move it, the serrations will remain, but all the new leaves that come up from that plant will now be smooth. Wow, this is a good question. I didn't even have that slide, but you're bringing it up. That's just awesome. You're filling in gaps that I chose to keep out simply in order to keep things moving along. However, I love the fact that you're filling in those gaps right now because, as I've mentioned, I'm a scientist and I thrive on completely worthless details because I love numbers and playing with that type of stuff. So here we are right now with the foxtail. I want to bring up that name because that's important to bring up. And I just lost my screen. There we go. So to answer some of your unasked questions right now, this is also part of the reason for cactus and the success. Cactus is found in very high conductivity, sandy soil environments. These points are important for it to survive. You then, as you might suggest right now, for those of you who are still awake, say, you know, Tom, I'm wondering right now, what would happen if you actually cut off the spines on a cactus? In many cases, you will kill it. And now you know why. In other cases, it can barely survive. And in a third case, the cactus will grow back leaves faster than you can sneeze. Okay? So there are ways, morphological ways that I'm referring to right now. There are also biochemical ways. The biochemistry I'm going to pass over to deal with electrical conductivity because the morphological ones are very easy to see. And you can actually use this as an indicator for what is going on in your crops. So the reason why we want to have life in the soil to help regulate it is because it buffers. All life buffers. What does it buffer? It buffers everything. It buffers pH, it can buffer water levels, it can buffer bicarbonate levels, it can buffer electrical conductivity, it buffers everything. And so if you have high salts and a high electrical conductivity environment, you have lost your buffering ability. And you need these microbes. These microbes are important because herbicides kill, true, but the side effect is that they do kill microbes. And they do it very well, especially glyphosate, which has been patented as an antimicrobial. Fungicides kill fungi. Side effect, they do kill microbes and they also kill mycorrhizal fungi, the more beneficial fungi that we like. And finally, you know where I'm going here, The insecticides kill insects, that's the target organism, but they also kill microbes. If you are putting all 3 of these down, or even 4 if you're using nematicides, then you are doing a wonderful job of completely cleaning out your soil of all of the microbes that you need in order to raise a healthy plant. Because these microbes are the ones that are putting nutrients into the plant, not the least of which are the minerals, which are helping make everything happen. The small minerals that aren't important, the coppers, the manganese, because we like to focus on the NPK and sometimes the calcium, magnesium, and sulfur. But the small stuff, very, very important. The microbes are mediating that. Now, if you're using all 3, you're causing a lot of damage. Is that the end of it? No, because I'm an entomologist, so I know we can go one step further. And so we've got chlorinated hydrocarbons for insecticides. We've got organophosphates, sometimes called OPs. We have carbamates, and we have pyrethroids, and we have the neonics, the neonicotinoids. And I know what is being suggested to all of you, because some of the people who are suggesting this to you are some of my good friends. The extension departments at a university are telling you that you really need to rotate your insecticides. Why? Insect resistance. We need to stave off insect resistance. So 1 year you're going to use an OP. Then you're going to switch to a pyrethroid, a synthetic pyrethroid, and then you're going to switch to a neonic and you're going to cycle through. Well, as you're doing that, each one of these insecticides kills very particular microbes. So if you are trying to clean out the microbes in your soil, you can do a really good job by hitting it with as many chemicals as you can. And at that point, you will start to create problems for yourself. And these problems can be taken care of by various more pesticides or force-feeding the plant through an NPK fertilizer. All expensive, all money.
We're so glad you enjoyed this installment from our in-person conference. We want this to reach as many people as possible, so we've decided to release this free to you bit by bit every month. But imagine how awesome it would be in person. The networking, questions, and discussions that result are equally as valuable. Join us next year in person for our 2026 conference. Your presence makes the experience. If you have any questions or needs, please reach out. Call, email, follow. We can help.